And so today we have our very own Kaya Sabo, who's going to be joining Sammy Maza from Iterable to talk about how we just are able to do that. So guys, welcome up.
It's great to see you all today. Before we get into the presentation, the song that just played for like 20 seconds has something to do with our presentation. Did anybody catch that? Okay, no worries. We'll talk later. Anyway, I know, yeah, it's Take Care by Rihanna and Drake. You got it? Yay, thank you. Awesome. So I know we've all been looking forward to Think Summit all year, and now that it's finally here, I hope you're just as excited as I am to get inspired and learn new things. So one new thing you'll learn today is how to turn your batch and blast emails into bespoke emails. All right, so Chelsea gave it away, but I am Kaya Sabo, not Sabo, Chelsea. I'm a director on the client experience team at Movable. I've been with the company now for over 8 years, so I am an OG inker. I actually just went on my sabbatical, so yeah, paid sabbatical, so come work for us. And I am joined today by our lovely partners, Iterable, to talk to you about how Care.com brought, hyper-personalized experiences to their subscribers. So I'll let Sammy introduce herself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sammy Maza. I am a senior solutions consultant at Iterable. I've been with Iterable for just over 3 years. I get my sabbatical at 4 years, so waiting for that. But I've been in the MarTech space for about 6 years. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys today about a little bit more about what Iterable does for those of you who don't know, and then also how we partnered with Movable Inc. to really up-level Care.com's newsletter strategy.
All right. So if you're familiar with Movable Inc., you've probably seen this slide before, right? And you know that we like to think of ourselves as a content layer that sits on top of your ESP or your MMP, like Iterable. And while we can do magical things with your data and your content, like bringing really complex business logic to life without sacrificing a ton of resources or visual branding, your ESP partners, like Iterable, they do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to collecting and managing all that data. So Sammy, tell us more about Iterable.
Yeah, so typically what you're going to see with a platform like Iterable is we're really going to act as that orchestration layer to really empower marketers to build out different messaging touchpoints, whether that's email, SMS, mobile, all of your different channels. So if we actually hop to the next slide, we can take a little bit of a deeper look into who Iterable is and what we do. So we are a leading cross-channel marketing platform that's really going to combine data from a multitude of different sources into really this holistic 360-degree view onto a user profile. So we could be tracking anything from like demographic information, preferences, user actions, interests, any of that data that you can then use to personalize all of your different touch points, whether that's email, mobile, SMS, even web personalization, and embedded content within your mobile apps. So channels that are historically kind of managed by more of like, your product team, your web team, can now be in the hands of marketers themselves. We also have additional tools like air traffic control. So you start to think about things like frequency management, frequency optimization, brand affinity, send time optimization, right? Even things like predictive analysis to kind of give propensity modeling to figure out, what is the best time to message to these users with the right content. So let's talk a little bit more about how Iterable and Movable Inc. kind of came together to build out something for Care.com.
All right, so before we go any further, who here has heard of Care.com or used them? Oh, amazing. Okay, so if you haven't, you're about to learn a lot about them, and maybe one day in your life you'll have a use for them. So Care.com, their mission is to help families at each stage of care. They are a two-sided online marketplace that connect caregivers with care seekers across a variety of care needs. So whether you're looking for someone to care for your pet or for your parent or your grandparent, Care.com has all of your care needs covered.
So what were some of the goals that Care.com had before coming to Iterable or even Movable Inc., right? So some of those pieces, they might sound a little bit familiar to some of you guys out there who have similar goals in a similar type of model, but really is to drive users to come back and have repeat bookings, right? So it's not just, someone's using you for childcare services. and then maybe at one point you no longer need that, but it's actually having this full education of the breadth of all the services that Care.com offers. So that could be things like senior services, home care, pet care, and really getting these users to come back time and time again and really use everything that Care.com has to offer and really build out that customer lifecycle. So before Care.com even came to Iterable, they were facing some common challenges that myself as a solutions consultant, I'm talking to folks day to day on the field, and I hear a lot of these challenges. One of those being siloed data, right? So they're using channels like a different SMS channel, a different email channel, different things for push and mobile, right? So you have data that's living in all of these disparate sources. So being able to really consolidate all of that into one holistic view of the user, so you can have channels that are bouncing off one another and actually using data from email to power your text or to power your mobile channels, for example. In addition to that, the tools that they were using prior didn't really enable them to have very sophisticated personalization, so another common thing that I hear. So really tough to wrangle in all that data that they have, but actually put it to good use and personalize things like newsletters. So in 2018, when we were able to actually bring Care.com on as a customer, and they've been happily working with us ever since, they were able to really build that foundational layer to actually build out personalized messages, and then they were ready to move on to that next step, which is pulling in a tool like Movable Ink to really take that to the next level.
Cool. Yeah, so once Care.com built their foundation with Iterable, or you can think of it as their engine or their pipes, then they were ready to enhance their personalization with tools like dynamic content. But as we said before, one of Care.com's goals is to reactivate their customers. And because of that, it's extra critical that the content we put in front of their customers is as data-driven as possible, right? Reflective of what we know about the customer, like where they're located or services they've booked in the past. And in order to do this, it's actually very manual, right? It's not easy to scale this type of content. And this is where Movable Ink came in to help.
So before we actually jump into the newsletter strategy, I'm curious by show of hands, who here has like a newsletter or kind of like a recurring message on a certain cadence similar to a newsletter in your marketing program today? Okay, most of y'all. And then of you guys, who's actually able to do this at scale where you're personalizing these messages on a one-to-one level? Less of you guys. That's about what I thought. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what we did together in a partnership to really help Care.com with this area.
Cool. So as we mentioned, one of Care.com's key goals is to keep inactive members engaged until the next job is required. And one of the tools that they use to do this is their newsletter. But prior to working with Movable Ink, Care.com didn't have the resources to personalize this newsletter. So regardless of who you were, right, everybody was seeing the same 5 articles. So I might be somebody that's interested in pet care, but week over week, I'm seeing no articles about pets and pet care. And slowly I'm becoming unengaged. Moreover, I might not even know that Care.com offers pet care as a service. So definitely not a great situation to be in. How did Care.com solve for this? So this is where Movable Ink and Iterable came in. So all of Care.com's data on their customer, right? So preference data, interest data, all of that lives in Iterable. On the content side, all of the articles that you see in the newsletter or on their blog is actually hosted by WordPress, which is their content management system. So using Movable Ink and Iterable, Care.com was able to combine their data and their content to deliver personalized articles to their subscribers. All right, so the cool thing about how they did this, right, is they did not have to code multiple versions of the email. They did not have to code complex logic into the HTML. And they didn't have to manually curate all of the content, because now that you're personalizing the newsletter, there's like 14 different versions. That means more content has to be created. So, right, how did they do this? So I'm sure you're thinking, this sounds great, but can I pull this off? Is it really as easy as it sounds? So those are excellent questions, and that's why today we are going to demystify how hyper-personalized content is built. We worked hard on that, Mist, so.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what that data looks like in Iterable and how that translates to Movable Ink to work together. So on the left, what you can actually see here is a screenshot of an Iterable user profile. So that's gonna be that 360-degree holistic view of your customer on a one-to-one level. That's their interests, their attributes, their actions, their preferences, and all of that. So this is a sample that I've kind of mocked up of exactly what Care.com has stored in terms of newsletter preferences on their users. So do I have an infant? Do I have a toddler? Is my kid of school age, right? So what type of content should I be seeing in that sense? Am I interested in seeing pet care, senior care, home care, right? So they're actually able to store different data points on the user profile that delineate what content should I be seeing in that particular message, which then translates very easily over into Movable Ink in a very low to no code fashion.
Exactly. So over here is the Movable Ink platform. And as you can see, we're literally just copying and pasting the attributes from Iterable into Movable Ink and then mapping them to keys on our side. And all this is doing from a technical standpoint is it's appending all of these attributes to the Movable Ink snippet as email parameters. And then once that snippet is sent through Iterable, those email parameters are activated. So that's literally it, right? It's not a heavyweight integration. It's very simple, just email parameters doing a lot of the magic. All right, on the content side, so we knew that all of the articles hosted on Care.com's blog had to be powered by some type of data source. Once we uncovered that it was a WordPress API, then we were able to plug that endpoint directly into our data sources tool. So what this does is it shows you all of the attributes that are available in that API. It could be your own API, it could be a partner API, and then you just select the parameters that you care about. So for this use case, we care about the article image, the article title, the link, subtitle. Once we capture those, they get pulled into the canvas in Movable Ink, and then we can create the content. All right, so the last step is setting up targeting rules. So no AMP script or anything, right? You're literally just doing dynamic fields, just writing simple rules, and then matching those to the articles that each segment should see. So it's very visual. You can see exactly what the segments are and what articles they're seeing, and it's all waterfall logic. So if I happen to be someone with a toddler and an infant, so I meet two criteria, whatever is at the top would be what is prioritized, and that's what I would see. All right, so what is this experience? What is the inbox experience? What does this look like? So you can think of it as when the email is sent, Iterable is telling Movable Ink, hey, Kaya's interested in pet care, Sammy's interested in home care. When the email is opened, Movable Ink is making a decision about which version to show each of us. Naturally, as soon as we see the personalized articles, we immediately make a booking.
Duh.
Okay, so I think generally we can agree that no personalization, right, is bad and personalization is good. But what impact did personalizing these articles actually have on the newsletter itself? Like, did it even work? All right, so we saw a 50% lift in click-through rate when we tested the control, which was the non-personalized version, against the test, the Movable Ink personalized version. So yes, it worked. Yay! Okay, so now that Care.com has mastered article personalization, we're actually working on a few other enhancements to the newsletter. All right, so this first module is called Caregivers Near You. This used to be its own email, but recently Care.com decided to weave it into the newsletter so that we can A, streamline resources, and B, talk to your customers in a more targeted way, right? Less emails. What this module does is it pulls in local caregivers in your area with a 4-star rating or above, and all the data that we use to determine who the user is, where they're located, the type of care we should show them, all of that is coming from Iterable. This other module here is called Other Trending Articles. So this was kind of in a similar vein, something that Care.com was managing on their own. It was very manual, right? Like every week, just changing the articles and the copy and the links. But now that we're connected to their WordPress API, we can actually just automate that for them. So one less module to have to think about. And then lastly is this live poll. So the live poll will change week over week, but in this version, Care.com is asking parents about their social media preferences. The nice thing about live polls is all the zero-party data that you collect can be piped right back into your ESP like Iterable. And this could happen in real time, and Iterable or Care.com can then use Iterable to segment off that data or to target off that data. All right, and lastly, if you're excited about personalizing your newsletter, but you want to know how else you can use your ESP data to build bespoke images and bespoke emails, here are a few other visual examples from Care.com. So over here, this is an account setup checklist. So it's a kind of a way to visualize a user's progress in their onboarding. Great way to drive those high-value actions during that critical period when your brand is being introduced to your customer. Over here, this is a personalized offers email. So same thing there. This was an email that Care.com was sending without Movable Link. It was originally not personalized at all, and everything was manually curated and manually managed. With Movable Link and those same attributes we have from Iterable, now we can actually personalize those offers so they're relevant to the user. And we're using a CSV file to host all of the content so that we can automate the content. So I think a key there is, if you're thinking about your content and you're like, I don't think it lives in an API, that's okay. We can also upload files into our platform.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about some key takeaways from today. So really, I think, especially like the exercises that we do at Iterable and talking to new clients that are looking to kind of up-level their marketing strategy is to really think about, okay, what are your top business goals? And then what are those use cases that are gonna make the largest impact to those goals and work backwards from there, rather than kind of having that let's throw all the data at it approach, but really thinking about it more thoughtfully, right? So once you kind of figure out what are those use cases that have the most impact on those business goals, start to identify where does that data live, to power those use cases, and what's the best way to actually get that data in. So a really common practice that I have as a solutions consultant is to actually help map that out, right? So kind of doing a data architecture planning to really figure out where that data lives, how to get it in to power those use cases.
Cool. All right, next, think about what content is required. Do you have to start from scratch to build that content? Or does that content already live somewhere, like on your website or on your blog or on a social media channel or in your mobile app? Maybe there's a third-party partner you're working with that manages that content. So think about if there's a way you can repurpose content that already exists somewhere. Otherwise, you can also think about templatizing it. So maybe you're creating something that has multiple variations, and if you just make them a bit more similar, we could use something like a CSV file to automate the actual creation of those images as well. All right, and lastly, so once you've figured out what data is required, where it lives, what content is required, then engage with your Movable Link and your Iterable or your ESP account managers and really flesh out the use case, map out the requirements, and most importantly, plan on how you're going to measure success. So often, we all get excited about new and innovative use cases, and we forget to test. So this is super, super important, especially to talk about upfront, because otherwise, how do you know the juice was even worth the squeeze? Cool. Awesome, thank you so much. If you want to talk to us about how to up-level your newsletters, you can find us around.